Did you know that the idea of combining Pokémon with the Mystery Dungeon franchise came from the close working relationship between Tsunekazu Ishihara, now president of the Pokémon Company, and Chunsoft, the original developer of Mystery Dungeon? And did you also know that Pokémon Mystery Dungeon is a spin-off of a spin-off? Pokémon Mystery Dungeon is one of the most beloved spin-off Pokémon games in the entire franchise, spawning 6 different sets of games thanks to its addictive gameplay, intriguing stories, and charming characters. In this Iceberg, we'll take a look at the secrets, mysteries, lore, unused content, lost media, and more about the first pair of Pokémon Mystery Dungeon games. Welcome to the Pokémon Mystery Dungeon Red and Blue Rescue Team Iceberg.
Say my name, EisenBerg. Goddamn right.
Akira Toriyama and Mystery Dungeon. What's the connection between Akira Toriyama, the father of Dragon Ball, and Mystery Dungeon? Besides creating Dragon Ball and Dr. Slump, he designed characters for several video games, including the legendary Chrono Trigger for the SNES, as well as the popular Dragon Quest. I remember reading a magazine in the early 90s, and I saw artwork of Dragon Quest, and I realized that a lot of characters looked as if they had been taken from Dragon Ball. In fact, I thought that Dragon Quest took place in the past of Dragon Ball due to the characters' attires, but in reality the explanation is that the characters were designed by Akira Toriyama. But why am I talking about Akira Toriyama in a Pokémon Mystery Dungeon video? Because the first Mystery Dungeon game was born as a spin-off of Dragon Quest. This is because Dragon Quest developer Chunsoft wanted to create a side story to this franchise with one of its most beloved characters, Torneko, a humble merchant in Dragon Quest IV. According to pre-release information found on the cutting room floor, it states that the idea of Pokémon Mystery Dungeon was born from Tsunekazu Ishihara's working relationship with Chunsoft all the way back in 1991 through the making of Tetris 2 plus Bumblebees. Ishihara played Torneko's great adventure Mystery Dungeon and became impressed due to its depth and quality, and this is how the idea of the Pokémon Mystery Dungeon universe came into existence more than 2 decades after. Tickling Satu. This refers to that part of Red Rescue Team or Blue Rescue Team in which a Satu is staring at the sun. In order to draw its attention, the partner either attacks or tickles the psychic Pokémon. Choosing to tickle Satu will result in it laughing after a couple of tries, which I think is a nice way to snap somebody out of an apocalyptic vision of the future. This is a clear reference to its Sapphire Pokédex entry that states that Satu is known to stand motionless while staring at the sun all day long, although in Ruby it says that people believe that this Pokémon does so out of fear of the terrible things it has foreseen in the future. Stealing from Keleon. Honesty is essential for a functioning society, and in some parts of the world like Switzerland, this principle is put to the test in small unattended shops where customers take groceries and leave payment on the counter. Unfortunately, there's always someone who doesn't understand or respect the rules, and while some escape unharmed after stealing, this is not always the case. An early example of this in video games happens in Zelda Link's Awakening, where Link can steal items from a shop, but the next time he enters, he'll be stabbed to death by the shopkeeper. Besides, his name will change to Thief, and there's nothing you can do about it. In the Mystery Dungeon series, you'll be able to buy items from Keleon, but you'll also have the chance to leave without paying. If you do it, Keleon will ask you if it's acceptable to pay a certain amount. If you say no, this will happen. Diglett's feet. After rescuing Diglett from Skarmory in Mystery Dungeon RRT and BRT, a couple of Magnemite you previously saved have to take Diglett over a cliff because he's too scared to move. After that, Diglett states that its feet felt like they were walking on air. This is such a big thing because there's no official artwork of Diglett showing what the rest of its body looks like. There have been, however, many theories on how Diglett's full body could look like. I remember that many years before Pokémon Mystery Dungeon, I was already curious about this, so I hacked the Diglett with Flying Pokémon Stadium, but of course you could only see the soil around it. Purple Keleon. There's a couple of Keleon that run the Keleon shop in Pokémon Square selling some items, and one of them is of a purple color. However, this Pokémon is a differently colored one and not a shiny. Differently colored Pokémon have appeared in early episodes of the anime, such as those living on Pinkan Island, and we've also seen some of them in Pokémon Stadium if you give them a nickname. Interestingly, there's a couple of Keleon that appeared in the anime and that predate the Mystery Dungeon games, and one of them happens to be a purple Keleon. Lucario is the greatest rescue leader. Although Gen 4 hadn't been officially introduced yet, Pokémon Mystery Dungeon Red Rescue Team and Blue Rescue Team's lore already spoke about the Gen 4 Pokémon being the greatest rescue leader, and that's none other than Lucario. This Pokémon doesn't show up, but Alakazam mentions that he wants to be as close as possible to this Pokémon's greatness. A statue of Lucario makes an appearance along with other Pokémon from the back then new generation. This reminds me of Tingle from Majora's Mask and other Zelda games because of this catchphrase. As you can expect, has no literal meaning, but it's an interjection that I think expresses excitement or happiness, and in the anime, it's implied that it's his way to use the move Hyper Voice. Although the Wigglytuff from the first games and the one from Explorers of Time, Darkness and Sky are different, both of them say Red Rescue Team and Blue Rescue Team cover art. Pokémon Mystery Dungeon RRT and BRT are the first games in the Mystery Dungeon series released for Game Boy Advance and Nintendo DS respectively. If you pay close attention to the respective cover arts, you can see that they're linked because the Blue Rescue Team is looking at the Red Rescue Team through a hole in the ground. In fact, the rock that Mudkip throws in the hole can be seen next to Magnemite in the Game Boy Advance game cover art. Gen 4 Pokémon in Red Rescue Team and Blue Rescue Team. It's a common tradition in Pokémon to reveal a few creatures from an upcoming generation before their official debut. I remember Munchlax and Bonsly being revealed early in Pokémon XD Gale of Darkness. Nonetheless, the biggest early reveal happened in Red Rescue Team and Blue Rescue Team, which featured 5 back then future Pokémon: Bonsly, Lucario, Weavile and Mime Jr. as statues, and Munchlax as an NPC. Personality test cheating. As you probably know, the Pokémon you start with in Mystery Dungeon depends on how you answer the personality test. If you had a specific favorite in mind, chances are you looked up the right answers online to make sure you could play as that Pokémon. It's a monster house. A monster house is a special room in the Pokémon Mystery Dungeon series where many Pokémon will suddenly appear as the music changes. Make sure to have a couple of Petrify Orbs if you want to survive these events. Multi-strike moves. In the core series games, multi-strike moves are generally underwhelming due to the reliance on luck and imperfect accuracy unless the user is a Pokémon with skill link. However, no matter what Pokémon uses them, this type of moves are truly broken in the Mystery Dungeon series. A prime example is Bullet Seed, a multi-strike attack that can hit you from 10 tiles away up to 5 times. Who can forget Fearow on Mount Blaze with Fury Attack? First spin-off remake. Remakes are common in the core series of Pokémon games, but something that was unprecedented in Pokémon spin-offs happened in 2020. In that year, Pokémon Mystery Dungeon Rescue Team DX for Nintendo Switch was released, being the first remake outside the main series to get a remake. Considering how beloved these Pokémon games are, it's no wonder they got a remake for the back then most recent Nintendo console. It would be amazing to see other Pokémon spin-offs remade, and this makes me think about the Pokémon Stadium series series, although a better alternative would be to have a Pokémon Stadium 3 game where you could use all 1025 Pokémon plus those from the 10th generation, but I don't think this is in Game Freak's plans. Turning into an apple. In battle, Pokémon don't really die, they just faint so that the player is aware that no real harm is being done to the opponent. In Mystery Dungeon, there are no Pokémon centers, so maybe when Pokémon are defeated inside a dungeon, they just heal after a while and respawn. But what happens when you turn a Pokémon into an apple? And even worse, what happens when you eat said apple? I don't think there's any reasonable explanation on how a Pokémon can survive this, even within the context of the Pokémon world. Personality test in Pokémon Sun and Moon. If you watched my Pokémon Sun and Moon Iceberg, you might remember that in either house in Pokémon Sun and Moon, if you go to the room on the left, there's a personality test on a bookshelf. Depending on what you answer, you'll get a specific Pokémon, a clear reference to the Pokémon Mystery Dungeon series. Recruiting Keleon. Plain and simple, Keleon is impossible to recruit unless you meet certain conditions. This is due to the fact that not only is its recruitment rate very low, it's actually in the negatives. With Keleon's recruitment rate sitting at -33.9%, you'll need a lead Pokémon at level 90 or higher holding a friend bow. Even then, you'll only have a 0.1% chance of recruiting it after defeating it, which is no easy task, as Keleon is the most overpowered Pokémon in the entire game. Bananas. We all have seen apples in the Pokémon Mystery Dungeon series, but not too many have seen bananas. The reason behind it is that these fruits or berries can only be found as buried items in certain locations, and they can increase your belly points by 5 if you eat them while full. Money as an item. There's a glitch, or I'm not actually sure if it's an intended mechanic, but if you have a Pokémon with the move Trick or Switcheroo and use it against a Pokémon that grabbed money, your Pokémon will have that money as an item. You can even check the info, although when retrieved, it will go to your wallet instead of the item's storage. Unused portraits. If you own a physical copy of Pokémon Mystery Dungeon Rescue Team DX, you might have noticed that the interior cover insert has cute portraits of our favorite characters, but what makes it even more special is the fact that some of these portraits went unused in the game. Which one is your favorite? Possess Orb. There's an item that doesn't appear anywhere in the game, and that is the Possess Orb. According to its description, it's a leader's hold item that enables the leader to possess a friend and survive. It only works for the team leader. Basically, if the protagonist is defeated and is holding this item, a Pokémon in the team will faint instead, although considering that if the partner Pokémon faints, you get kicked out of the dungeon, I guess this only works if you have a team of 3 or more Pokémon. Unused music. As in many Pokémon games, there's unused music and sounds in the internal files of the game, so I'll just play some of them. Unused animations. There are a bunch of unused animations for different Pokémon. Take a look. Unused dungeons. There's a video by YouTuber Aurum that shows many of the unused dungeons in RRT and BRT. Take a look. Humans are extinct. The absence of humans in the Pokémon Mystery Dungeon series is undeniable. Due to the nature of the games and its universe, it's understandable we don't see any, even though there has been mention of them, although many of the humans mentioned were turned into Pokémon. This only raises the question, where are humans in the Pokémon Mystery Dungeon universe? Humans are supposed to be the dominant species on Earth, and whenever we see a group of Pokémon in the wild, they're not highly organized as in the Mystery Dungeon universe. This has led some to believe that either humans are extinct or that they don't exist at all in that world. The existence of Mewtwo presents a challenge to this theory. For one, Mewtwo was engineered by humans, so if humans disappeared long ago, that would imply either that Mewtwo has an exceptionally long lifespan or is outright immortal. However, given that Mewtwo's DNA originates from a mythical Pokémon, it's not surprising that it could possess such longevity or even the potential for an endless life. What do you think about this theory? Blue Rescue Team erases your save file. In the original Japanese version of Blue Rescue Team, a bug could erase save data from any Game Boy Advance game inserted into the DS's second slot, unless it was Red Rescue Team. Imagine having one of your main series Pokémon games with the Pokédex completed just for Blue Rescue Team to destroy hundreds of hours and probably dollars put into it. Ominous Wind. I'm not talking about the ghost-type move from Generation 4, but about a mysterious occurrence in the Pokémon Mystery Dungeon games when you've spent a long time battling Pokémon in a single floor in a dungeon. The game displays several messages telling you of a mysterious force approaching, and that becomes stronger as time goes by. The fact that the music stops announcing its presence makes it even creepier. At the end, the game says that an unseen force has blown out the main character, but what this force is has never been explained anywhere. Gold Rescue Team. For some reason, there was a third version of Mystery Dungeon RRT and BRT called Pokémon Mystery Dungeon Gold Rescue Team. The reason why not too many people know about it is because only those who registered an account on the Korean Pokémon Mystery Dungeon special player site could download it. But don't think that you could download it to your Nintendo DS. This demo could only be downloaded on a PC, which makes it one of the few Pokémon games available outside of a Nintendo console back in the day. Although it might sound like an enhanced version of RRT and BRT, in reality it's a weird combination between the two because the resolution of the game is the same one as that of Red Rescue Team, but with the features of Blue Rescue Team, with the exception of the dual screen, of course. As expected from a demo with very limited distribution, it's considered lost media, and even though a ROM.exe file surfaced on a Korean website in 2021, there are some critical files missing that lead the game to a crash. Mystery Dungeon Dark Themes. It's true that Pokémon can be dark at times. We have Lavender Town, Pokémon dying, ghosts, and so on, and Mystery Dungeon is no exception. Just think about some of the events that occur in RRT and BRT. There's a trainer who was about to be cursed for touching one of Ninetales' tails, but when he's saved by his loyal Gardevoir, he abandons her. There are natural disasters that signal an impending apocalypse, and there's a whole community of Pokémon not only asking you to leave because they believe you're the cause of these calamities, but also ready to hunt you down. I guess the charm of Mystery Dungeon lies in how these deep topics can merge with some of the silly moments present in the games. The Aura's Mystery Dungeon connection. If you've played Pokémon Omega Ruby and Alpha Sapphire, you might be familiar with the Delta episode and how a meteorite was about to impact Earth. There's a device called the Dimensional Shifter, a tool that would send a meteorite to a parallel universe in which it would impact another version of the Pokémon world. While this seemed to be the only way they could be saved, Zinnia decides against it and destroys the Dimensional Shifter. It is said that an infinite number of universes and timelines exist in the multiverse, so there's a possibility that in one of those infinite timelines, they did use the Dimensional Shifter to send that meteorite to another dimension, and that place was none other than the Pokémon Mystery Dungeon universe, in which the Rayquaza from that world had to destroy it. Hermy Hopperhead Penguin. Hermy Hopperhead is an obscure PlayStation game from 1995 exclusive to Japan that only sold around 12,000 copies during its lifetime. The story follows a child called Hermie as he witnesses an egg leap out of a trash can and, peering inside, falls into an alternate dimension. Why on earth am I talking about this? Well, because in the game files of Mystery Dungeon Blue Rescue Team, there's an image of a penguin from that video game. It's not uncommon to find pictures or images in a game's file that have nothing to do with the game itself. This can often be explained by the fact that a staff member may have previously worked on a title related to that picture, but what's mysterious about this image is that nobody responsible for developing the game has anything to do with the developer of Hermy Hopperhead. You give up on your previous life. This might sound dark, but it's a reality we often overlook. Thousands of people around the world vanish without explanation. Their absence leaves more than just a void. It leaves behind families, friends, and loved ones caught in an endless limbo. We're not just talking about the fate of the missing person. We're talking about those who remain. Parents, siblings, friends, people who spend years, even decades, not knowing if the person they loved is still alive or worse, imagining that they might be alive but suffering. That's what makes the ending of Pokémon Mystery Dungeon Red Rescue Team and Blue Rescue Team so devastating when you stop to think about it. At the end of the game, your mission as a Pokémon comes to an end. The world has been saved, and with it, your purpose has been fulfilled. Gardevoir tells you it's time to return to your life as a human, but the bonds you form in the Pokémon world are strong enough to make you stay. It's a happy moment for the Pokémon around you, but what about your human family? One day, your parents notice their son was gone, and with the decision you made, they will never know what exactly happened to you. This reminds me a bit of that story in the 7th generation, in which we find a letter in a bottle on Kalai Bay from a young boy that disappeared many decades ago. If you go to Iki Town, there's a woman you hand the letter, and she explains that the boy in question is her brother. Even though she didn't see her brother, she got closure, especially knowing that in the letter, the boy states that he is happy where he ended up. Nonetheless, this is not the case for the protagonist in the first Pokémon Mystery Dungeon, because he was never able to communicate to his family what had happened. Thank you so much for watching. Don't forget to check out the EisenBerg Experience channel, where I upload more icebergs about video games. Remember that you can be a member of the channel and learn more about how to become a YouTuber, or more specifically a PokeTuber, whether you're willing to be a faceless channel or not. I want to thank Adi Rockart, Midnight Leah, Mina the Dragon, Nahuel Sebastián Galesi, Raúl Montes, Nayeli Rodriguez, ASDF01X and Rodrigo for joining the members of the channel. See you in the next one.